It was close to midnight when I pulled into Route 119 near Pine Hollow Road, West Virginia. That stretch of highway has always felt different, like time slows down when you drive it. The trees grow so thick on either side that even the headlights struggle to cut through the darkness. My GPS had already lost signal 20 minutes back, but I wasn't too worried. I'd driven this road before. Or at least, I thought I had. That night, something was wrong. Before I dive in, let me just say this. What I'm about to tell you isn't a story I heard. It isn't some creepy urban legend floating around the internet. This is something that happened to me. And the worst part? I still don't have an explanation. I was heading back from a friend's cabin gathering. Everyone else had decided to stay the night, but I had work early the next morning, so I said my goodbyes, grabbed a cup of cheap black coffee from the kitchen, and hit the road around 11:15 p.m. At first, the drive was uneventful, just me, the empty highway, and the low hum of the engine. I had the radio tuned to a late-night AM station that played old country ballads mixed with static. It gave me a sense of company, though half the time I couldn't tell if I was listening to music or ghostly voices between frequencies. Then, around the 15-mile mark, I saw it. Up ahead, there was a faint glow on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was just another driver pulled over, maybe a flat tire, maybe someone lost. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't a car at all. It was a gas station, which made no sense. I've taken Route 119 dozens of times. There is not a single gas station between Pine Hollow Road and the interstate, at least not for another 30 miles. But there it was, flickering neon sign, the word Earl's Fuel and Mart glowing half dead above the entrance. Something about the place looked abandoned. The canopy lights buzzed weakly, moths circling like tiny satellites. The pumps were old, the kind with the spinning numbers instead of digital screens, and the sign by the roadside had missing letters, reading more like EA_L's FU_D than anything legible. Now, here's where logic should have kicked in. I had half a tank of gas left. I didn't mean to stop. Every instinct in me whispered, keep driving. But curiosity, maybe mixed with the weight of the silence on that road, pulled me in. I parked by the pumps, killed the engine, and stepped out. The air was heavy with the smell of damp asphalt and something metallic, like rust. A soft buzzing filled the night, the sound of the failing neon. When I pushed open the door to the store, a little bell jingled overhead. The sound was oddly cheerful, almost mocking against the bleakness of the place. The inside was frozen in time. Dust-coated shelves held expired potato chips and cans of soup I hadn't seen in years. The refrigerators hummed, but the glass was fogged, and inside sat cloudy bottles of soda that looked like they'd been there since the 90s. A single ceiling fan creaked slowly, its pull chain swinging, though no breeze stirred the air. And then, out of nowhere, came a voice. "You're out late, friend." I spun around. Behind the counter stood a man I hadn't noticed at first. He looked to be in his late 60s, wiry, with gray hair slicked back and skin pale as candle wax. His shirt bore a stitched name tag, Earl. For a moment, I just stared. Yeah, long drive, thought I'd stop in. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Not many folks come down this way anymore. Not since the accident. The accident? He tilted his head slightly, as if the question puzzled him. Long time ago now. Don't matter much anymore. I forced a chuckle. Right. Do you have a bathroom? His eyes lit up, though not in a way that comforted me. Of course. Back left corner. The hallway to the bathroom was narrow and dimly lit, with fluorescent bulbs buzzing overhead. The air smelled faintly of mildew, and the tiles beneath my shoes were sticky. When I opened the bathroom door, I immediately regretted it. The mirror above the sink was cracked down the middle like a jagged lightning bolt. The sink itself was rust-stained, and the faucet dripped irregularly, echoing like a metronome. And then, Earl noticed something even worse. In the rearview mirror, someone was sitting in my back seat. I woke up, drenched in sweat, the motel sheets twisted around me like restraints. For a moment, I didn't even know where I was. The neon buzz outside the thin curtains reminded me I was still stuck in that crumbling roadside motel in Millbrook, New York. My throat was dry, but it wasn't thirst that woke me. It was the sound. At first, I thought it was wind howling through the cracked windows, but as I sat up, straining my ears, I realized it was more deliberate, like a low hum vibrating through the walls. It rose and fell with a strange rhythm, too steady to be wind, too unnatural to be the pipes. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, but of course the screen was blank. The battery had been full when I checked in. Now it was dead, just like it had been drained. That's when the humming stopped. I froze, holding my breath. The silence was worse. Every sound outside, passing cars, the rustle of trees, had cut out completely. The world beyond that room was gone. And then, knock. A single knock at the door. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move. The door lock was flimsy, just a rusted chain. Whoever or whatever stood outside could have walked in easily if it wanted to, but it didn't. It knocked again. "Who is it?" My voice came out cracked and weak. No answer, just silence. The third knock was harder, rattling the thin wood. My chest tightened. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, holding it like a weapon, and edged closer. "Look, if this is some kind of joke, it's not funny." Nothing. Then a scraping sound, metal against wood, like long fingernails dragging down the door. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. The scraping paused. I swear I heard breathing on the other side. And then, just as suddenly, footsteps walked away. I stayed frozen for a long time, gripping the lamp until my knuckles ached. Eventually, I forced myself to the peephole, but what I saw nearly made me collapse. The hallway was empty, completely empty. But the carpet outside my door, it was soaked, dark, wet stains spreading like something had been dragged across it. The smell hit me next, metallic, foul, unmistakably like blood. I staggered back, slamming the chain lock tight. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When the sun finally rose, everything was normal again. The hum of cars on the highway, the chatter of a TV in a room down the hall, the front desk clerk yawning behind the counter. I rushed downstairs and demanded to know who had been on my floor last night. The clerk gave me a blank stare. "Sir, you were the only guest on that floor." I didn't believe him at first, but when I walked back to the hallway, the carpet was clean, dry, as though nothing had ever happened. I checked out within the hour, tossing my room key on the counter and heading straight for the car. My nerves were already shot, and I swore I'd never step foot in Millbrook again. But leaving wasn't that simple. The road back to the highway was straight and short, just a 5-minute drive, yet it somehow kept stretching. I drove past the same gas station 3 times, the same faded billboard advertising fresh apples 10 miles ahead. My GPS flickered uselessly, rerouting me in circles. By the 4th pass, I realized I wasn't leaving, Something was keeping me here. I pulled over at a diner just outside town. The sign said, "Harper's Eatery, family-owned since 1957. The parking lot was empty, but I was too desperate to care. I pushed through the door, the bell chiming softly. "Morning, stranger. Haven't seen you before. Long night?" I hesitated before sliding onto a stool. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep." Her eyes flicked to the dark circles under mine. "Millbrook has that effect on people." She poured me coffee without asking. "Folks pass through, but they don't usually stay." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Strange things happen here, especially on nights like last night." I froze with the cup halfway to my lips. "You heard it too? The knocking?" Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes changed. They narrowed, watching me carefully. "What knocking?" I set the cup down, unsettled. "Forget it. Must have been nothing." For a while, we sat in silence. The only sounds were the faint buzz of the lights and the ticking of the clock above the register. But when I glanced at it, I realized something was wrong. The clock hands weren't moving. They were stuck at 3:07, the exact time I'd heard the first knock. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my cup. The waitress didn't even flinch. She just kept smiling, frozen in place, her eyes following me as I backed out the door. Outside, the air felt heavier, thicker, like the whole town was pressing down on me. The streets were too quiet again. No cars, no people, just rows of silent buildings, their windows dark. I got in my car and started the engine, determined to break free. I drove faster this time, ignoring the GPS, following nothing but instinct. Trees blurred past on either side, endless stretches of forest pressing closer. But when I finally slowed down, my stomach dropped. I was back at the diner. Same sign, same empty lot, only this time the windows weren't dark. Someone or something was standing inside. Not the waitress, taller, thinner, a figure with no face, just a pale blur where features should be. I didn't go back in. I pressed the gas and sped away, heart slamming in my chest. But no matter which road I took, I kept ending up in Millbrook. By the time night fell again, I knew one thing for certain. This town wasn't going to let me go. The second night in Millbrook was worse. I hadn't meant to stay, but the town had its grip on me. No matter which road I took, I circled back. Every turn brought me past that same gas station, that same diner, the same lifeless streets. It was as if Millbrook existed in its own loop, refusing to let me escape. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe my mind was playing tricks after a night of no sleep. But as dusk fell and the streetlights flickered on, my body felt the weight of something unnatural pressing down. I parked the car on Main Street, deciding I couldn't drive anymore. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and I was terrified of crashing headlong into the woods. The town was eerily silent, storefronts empty, blinds drawn, sidewalks deserted. Except for one man. He stood on the far side of the street near an old hardware store. His clothes looked wrong, like something from decades ago. Suspenders, a dusty button-up shirt, and shoes so worn the soles were nearly gone. He was staring at me. I raised a hand hesitantly. "Hey, can you help me? I can't get out of town." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, without speaking, he raised his arm and pointed down a side street. It was a narrow lane, choked with shadows, leading straight into the older part of town. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to go, but I was desperate. I nodded a thanks, turned back toward the car, and froze. The man was gone. Just gone. A shiver crawled up my spine. Still, I forced myself to drive where he had pointed. The road narrowed, houses crumbling on either side. Windows were shattered, doors rotted. Some of the homes looked burned out, their frames blackened like the shells of corpses. My headlights caught movement in the windows, shapes ducking out of sight as I passed. And then I found it. At the end of the street stood a church. Its steeple was broken, leaning precariously, but the front doors were intact, glowing faintly with candlelight from within. I pulled over and stepped out, the air icy against my skin. The silence was so complete that my footsteps echoed on the cracked pavement. I reached the doors and pushed them open. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and wax. Dozens of candles flickered along the pews, their flames casting shadows that writhed and twisted on the walls. And at the altar, a book. It lay open, pages yellowed, covered in handwritten scrawl. I stepped closer, my heart hammering. The words weren't English. They weren't even letters I recognized. Strange, jagged symbols, drawn with something dark that had dried into the page. Blood. The moment I realized it, the candles flickered violently. A wind howled through the church, though the doors behind me slammed shut. My chest tightened, the air grew heavy, crushing me in place. And then I heard it again. Whispers. Dozens of them, overlapping, crawling into my ears. They rose from the walls, the ceiling, even the floor beneath my feet. I couldn't make out the words, but the intent was clear. They wanted me to stay. I stumbled back, clutching my head. The whispers grew louder, sharper, until they were nearly screams. The shadows writhed faster, stretching across the floor like black hands reaching for me. I bolted for the doors, slamming my shoulder against them. They wouldn't budge. Behind me, the book's pages flipped wildly, as though caught in a storm. And then they stopped, landing on a single drawing. My blood ran cold. It was me. A rough sketch, but unmistakable. My face, my car, even the motel where I'd stayed. And below it, one line written in English. You cannot leave. The doors burst open then, throwing me backward onto the church steps. I scrambled up, gasping for air. The night outside was colder, the town darker. The streetlights had gone out completely. And in that moment, I understood. Millbrook wasn't just a town. It was a trap, a place caught between life and death, feeding on those unlucky enough to stumble inside. I ran back to my car, fumbling with the keys. As the engine roared to life, I looked in the rearview mirror. The church was gone. In its place was an empty lot, overgrown with weeds. I pressed the gas, speeding away, tears blurring my vision. My mind screamed at me to stop, to think, but I couldn't. I just had to get away, no matter what. The roads twisted endlessly, dragging me deeper into the heart of town. I passed the same landmarks again and again: gas station, diner, boarded up houses. But this time, something was different. The people were back. Figures stood on the sidewalks, watching silently as I drove past. Men, women, children, all dressed in outdated clothes, their faces pale and blurred, like unfinished paintings. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They just watched. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, they were gone. By midnight, I was shaking uncontrollably. I pulled over in front of another abandoned house, too drained to keep driving. The windows were shattered, the door hanging crooked. But I had no choice. I needed shelter, if only to close my eyes for a few hours. Inside, the air was thick with dust. My flashlight beam cut through cobwebs, revealing broken furniture and peeling wallpaper. I sank on a collapsed couch, too exhausted to care, and closed my eyes. That's when I heard it again. Knock. Slow. Deliberate.
This time, it wasn't at the door. It was inside the house, from upstairs. I held my breath, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. The knock came again, closer, like footsteps dragging across the floorboards, then a whisper, soft but clear. "Stay." The flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed me whole.
The knocking upstairs grew louder. I stayed frozen on the couch, my flashlight dead in my hands. The sound of footsteps dragged across the ceiling above me, slow and deliberate. Each creak of the floorboards sent shivers down my spine. "Stay." The whisper was closer now, drifting down the staircase. My body screamed at me to run, but my legs felt nailed to the floor. I forced myself up, heart pounding, and crept toward the front door. The wood groaned under my feet, echoing like a scream in the silence. Halfway across the room, the staircase groaned. Something was coming down. I didn't look back. I bolted for the door, slamming it open and stumbling onto the porch. The night air hit me like ice water. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys. Behind me, the front door slammed shut with a deafening crack. The street was empty, the rows of houses looming like dark sentinels. Every window seemed to watch me, hollow eyes peering into my soul. I jumped into the car, started the engine, and sped away. But the roads twisted again, pulling me deeper into the town. Millbrook wasn't letting me go. As I turned a corner, I saw them. The townsfolk. They lined the sidewalks now, shoulder to shoulder. Men in suspenders, women in faded dresses, children clutching old dolls. Their faces were pale and blurred, as if unfinished, but their eyes, black, endless voids, never left me. I slammed the gas, but the car lurched. The engine sputtered, coughing like it was choking on the very air. I slammed the wheel, cursing, as the car rolled to a stop in front of the diner. It was lit this time. Every window glowed with warm yellow light. I didn't want to go in, but the crowd outside was closing in. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, their silent faces turning toward me in unison. My chest tightened. I had no choice. I ran to the diner and yanked the door open. The bell chimed cheerfully. Inside, the place was full. Every booth occupied. Families eating silently, forks clinking against plates. But none of them looked up. Not one. The waitress was at the counter again. Same uniform, same too-wide smile. "Welcome back," she said softly. I swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" Her smile widened, stretching too far, skin pulling unnaturally. "We want you to stay." "I can't. I need to leave. I need to get out of here." Her eyes flicked toward the clock on the wall. The hands were frozen again. 3:07. "It's already too late," she whispered. The crowd outside pressed against the windows now, their blurred faces peering in. My breath quickened. I backed toward the door, but the waitress's voice cut through me. "If you leave, it will follow you. It always follows." I froze. "What follows?" Her face faltered for the first time. Her face twitched, like something beneath her skin was shifting. Then she leaned close and whispered one word. "Hunger." The lights flickered. Every head in the diner snapped toward me at once. Dozens of pale faces, eyes black as tar. I bolted for the back exit, slamming through the kitchen. The smell of rot hit me, meat long spoiled, flies buzzing in the corners. I pushed through another door and stumbled into an alley. The air was heavy, suffocating. The building seemed taller, leaning inward, trapping me. My pulse thundered in my ears as I ran. But no matter which way I turned, the alleys twisted, dragging me deeper. Finally, I collapsed against a brick wall, gasping. My body shook with exhaustion. That's when I noticed the carvings, symbols, the same jagged marks from the church book etched into the walls of the alley. They glowed faintly, pulsing like veins under skin. My breath hitched, and then I heard it again. The hum, low, steady, vibrating through the walls, the same sound that had woken me in the motel. It grew louder, shaking the ground beneath me. The bricks shifted, bulging outward like something was trying to push through. I staggered back. The wall cracked open, and a hand emerged. Long, pale, with too many fingers. It clawed at the air, searching for... "No," I whispered. The wall split wider. A shape pulled itself through. Tall, faceless, skin stretched thin over bone. Its head tilted unnaturally, twisting like it didn't understand its own body. It stepped into the alley, and the humming stopped. Silence. The figure stood there, inches from me, though it had no eyes, no mouth, and yet I felt it watching me, studying me. Then it whispered in dozens overlapping voices, "Stay." I ran. I didn't know how long I ran. The streets twisted endlessly, alleys folding into one another like a maze designed to keep me trapped. The faceless figure's whisper still rang in my ears, layered with voices that didn't belong to it, or maybe belonged to everyone who had ever been caught here. Stay. No matter how far I got, the word followed. By the time my legs gave out, I found myself at the edge of town, or what looked like the edge. Ahead of me, the trees loomed tall, dark, stretching on forever. I fell to my knees, gasping, then realized something was wrong. The trees weren't trees. At least, not anymore. Their bark was pale, like skin. Their branches twisted like arms, reaching out. Faces seemed to bulge from their trunks, mouths frozen in silent screams. My stomach churned, and then I saw one of them. A face I recognized. The motel clerk. His features pressed into the bark of one of the trees, eyes wide, mouth open. He was still alive, or had been. His lips moved faintly, whispering the same cursed word, "Stay." I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. The forest wasn't an escape. It was part of Millbrook. It was made of the people who had never left. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the humming again, louder now, almost like a heartbeat shaking the earth. Against my better judgment, I followed it. My body moved on instinct, like the sound itself had hooked into me, dragging me along. The path led me to the outskirts of town, where an old factory loomed. Its smokestacks leaned like broken teeth, windows shattered, roof caved in. The sign above the rusted gates read, "Millbrook Ironworks, Est 1892. The hum pulsed from inside. I pushed through the gates, the hinges shrieking. Inside, the factory was a hollow shell, littered with rusted machines and broken catwalks. But at the far end, a stairway descended into the earth. I shouldn't have gone down. Every instinct begged me not to. But the hum was stronger now, vibrating through my bones. I had to know. The stairs spiraled downward into darkness. My phone was dead, my flashlight gone, but faint red light seeped up from below, guiding my steps. The air grew hotter, heavier, smelling of iron and ash. When I reached the bottom, I stepped into a vast underground chamber. The walls weren't stone, they pulsed like flesh, veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. The floor was slick, wet, as though alive, and in the center of the chamber stood a massive pit, glowing with that same red light. I creeped closer, heart hammering. The hum thundered now, shaking the walls. I peered into the pit and saw them. Bodies, hundreds of them, twisting together, pale limbs writhing, faces screaming silently. They weren't dead. Their eyes darted wildly, their mouths opened and closed in endless terror. They were fused together, flesh against flesh, dragged into the pit by something unseen. My stomach lurched. I stumbled back, gagging. Then, from the pit, something rose. At first, I thought it was smoke, a shadow, but it kept rising, taking shape, towering, faceless, its body stitched together from the same pale limbs I had seen in the pit. It had no single face, but dozens, shifting across its surface, men, women, children, all whispering the same cursed word. Stay. The creature loomed over me, its head tilting unnaturally. My body locked, every muscle frozen. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't scream. And then the whispers stopped. For the first time there was silence. The creature bent low, faceless head inches from mine. A single voice, deep and guttural, spoke, not in whispers, but in words that rattled through my bones. You are ours now. The ground trembled. The walls pulsed faster, veins throbbing. From the pit, more arms reached upward, clawing at the air. The chamber shook like it was alive, like the whole town was breathing in rhythm with the thing. I stumbled back toward the stairs, but the ground split open. Pale hands shot up, clutching my ankles. I screamed, kicking, tearing free, scrambling up the steps. Behind me, the roar rose, thousands of voices screaming at once. Stay! I climbed faster than I thought possible, my lungs burning. The stairs twisted endlessly, the red light fading. Finally, I burst into the factory floor, collapsing on the cold concrete. The hum was gone, the air was still. But I wasn't safe. Through the broken windows, I saw them again, the townsfolk, dozens of them, gathered outside the gates, waiting, watching, their black eyes fixed on me. And for the first time, I realized the truth. The thing in the pit wasn't just a heart of Millbrook. It was Millbrook, the town itself, alive, feeding on everyone who stumbled in. And now, it wanted me. I backed away from the windows, my chest heaving. I didn't know how much longer I could fight. Every corner of this place was alive, every road a trap, every face a warning. But one thing was clear. If I didn't find a way out soon, I wouldn't just be trapped here. I'd become part of it. I don't remember how I left the factory. One moment I was pressed against the cold floor, heart hammering like it wanted to escape my chest, and the next I was stumbling back into the open night air. The town was waiting. They lined the streets in silence. Men, women, children, all staring with those endless black eyes. Not a sound, not a breath, just that suffocating stillness. I wanted to scream, but my throat had dried up like sandpaper. I turned and ran. Street after street blurred together. Storefronts I'd never seen before now flashed past as if they'd been waiting for me all along. Every time I thought I'd reached the edge of Millbrook, I only found myself deeper inside. And then I saw it. A road sign. Bent, rusted, half swallowed by weeds. It read, Interstate 81, 2 miles. Hope surged in my chest. My legs screamed in protest as I sprinted toward it. 2 miles, and I'd be free. But as I reached the outskirts, the world changed. The trees loomed again, those pale-barked horrors with faces stretched across their trunks. The sign flickered in the moonlight like a mirage, bending and twisting until the words blurred. My vision swam. I blinked. The road was gone. In its place stood the motel. The same cracked neon sign buzzing weakly. The same empty parking lot. The door to the lobby hanging open, waiting. I froze. My chest heaved. This was it. The trap wasn't the streets, the people, the forest. The trap was the loop. Every road led back here. The whispers rose again, seeping from the walls, the ground, the very air around me. Stay, stay, stay. I dropped to my knees, clutching my ear, screaming at the empty sky. I don't belong here. I'm not part of this place. The ground trembled. The motel door creaked wider. And then, through the ringing in my head, I heard another sound. My own voice, calling from inside the motel. Please, help me. I staggered back, shaking my head. No, it wasn't possible, but the voice grew louder, closer, until it was echoing in my bones. I couldn't stop myself. Step by step, I moved toward the door. My hand touched the handle, cold, metal, solid. And then I pulled it open. The lobby was empty, silent, but on the far wall, a mirror hung crooked. And in it, I saw myself. Not the broken, dirt-streaked, terrified version of me I knew. No, this reflection was calm, still, black eyes shining like the others. It smiled. You already belong to us, it whispered. My lips didn't move, but the voice was mine. The floor split open, hands clawed upward, pale and desperate, seizing my legs, my arms dragging me down. I screamed, thrashing, clawing at the floorboards, but the reflection only stood there, smiling wider. As the world pulled me under, I realized the truth. No one escaped Millbrook. The town didn't just trap you, it replaced you. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me whole was my reflection stepping out of the mirror, brushing the dust from its clothes, and walking toward the door, free, while I sank into the pit of whispering voices and became one of them forever.